Welcome to TRIA. This is our first podcast or questionnaire that we're going to do with our speaker, Corey Deharsh. He is from Advanta IRA, and we're going to answer some questions about what a self-directed IRA is.
Awesome.
So, welcome to Raleigh, North Carolina.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys for having me.
So, Corey, could you please explain what is a self-directed IRA and how does it is it different than a traditional IRA?
Sure. So a self-directed IRA is one where you can really invest in any asset class you'd want to outside of traditional stocks, bonds, mutual funds that people are familiar with. So these types of plans don't have what's called a fiduciary or a financial advisor that oversee and guide the investments you make. You're taking out the fiduciary role and in place of it, self-directing, actually controlling the investments that you make yourself based on your own judgments or your own counsel of tax advisors, financial advisors, CPAs, whoever they may be.
Awesome, thank you. What type of investments can I hold in my self-directed IRA? You mentioned a few already, but can I do real estate? Can I do anything else? What type of investments do you particularly see with Advanta?
We see a lot of range of investments, actually. It's easier to say what you cannot invest into with the IRS rules.
Maybe do that.
Which are basically life insurance policies and hard to value collectibles like antiques, fine wine, artwork, anything that would be subjective in value. You're really not supposed to hold in your IRA account. But as long as it is a passive income generating asset, you can hold it in your IRA. You just need a self-direct account to do so. So real estate, precious metals, foreign currencies, even into the cryptocurrency space, private lending. Those are some of the common aspects that we see in the self-directed space.
Can I even invest in art?
Art is subjective or collectible,
Okay,
so art would be off limits.
Okay.
But for the most part, again, anything that's passive income generating that does not have a subjective value would be something that you can likely find a way to invest with your retirement funds.
Awesome, thank you. What are the risks of investing in a self-directed IRA? Are there any risks involved?
Well, with any type of investment, you're going to find risk.
Yeah, sure.
More so in this space, the risk is based off of your preference of what you're investing into. So making sure you're doing the due diligence. Let's say for real estate specifically, if you're going to go be a fix and flipper or buy a piece of rental property, it's the same risk you'd assess when you're doing that outside of your retirement funds with your savings. Same thing with investing into a syndication, a private stock, limited partnership. You're going to want to do the underwriting and due diligence so that you're assessing that risk fully. But beyond that, there's not really any additional overhead risk that you would otherwise face making these same investments with your own savings.
Is a custodian as Advanta protecting the beneficiary, or I don't know how it's self-directed?
Sure.
Is there any layer of protection that you guys provide?
No protection, because ultimately we are executing the transactions that the client directs us to do. Again, this client's self-directing their investment. We're the custodian or administrator that's making sure all the T's are dotted and I's are crossed on the paperwork, and the investment follows through with the IRS's rules and regulations in place. Aside from that, it is the client's discretion that's really making the investment. So they're bearing the burden of the risk of whatever they decide to invest into.
Awesome, thank you. So can you explain to anybody here that is viewing this channel, is looking at it, and they will be here tonight, how do I open a self-directed IRA? Is it very complex? Is it easy? What are the first steps that I should take if I want to open a self-directed IRA?
Yeah, it's actually a common misnomer that this is a tedious or lengthy process. Our application really only takes about 15 minutes. We usually collect them via DocuSign, 6 pages, 7 pages usually at max. So you complete an application in about 15 minutes. You work with someone like myself on the business development team to put in place where your funds are coming from, if they're coming from existing IRAs or employer-sponsored plans, and we make sure that that process is the first thing that takes steps after you open the account, is getting the money moved over from where it's coming from. And all in all, we usually see accounts go from an application turned in to being funded and ready to invest in roughly 10 to 14 days, speaking conservatively.
Oh, okay, and I have to admit, I'm with you guys, and it was pretty easy. I'll say that.
Awesome.
What are the IRS rules that prohibit an self-directed IRA transaction? Are there any?
Sure. Okay. So what I went over earlier, as far as the asset classes you can invest into, life insurance policies, hard to value collectibles, antiques, fine wine, those are off-limit asset classes. The only other real restriction the IRS has with these account types are labeling certain individuals disqualified persons. So you're not allowed to transact with a disqualified person, meaning for the context of real estate, I can't let a disqualified person live in a property that my retirement account owns and pay my retirement account rent. I can't buy a piece of property from a disqualified person. And disqualified persons are really just your lineal tree of lineal members of your family tree. So your parents, your children, your grandparents, your grandchildren, everyone on that main trunk, those are disqualified persons, as well as businesses that those individuals own or control day-to-day operations of or own 50% or more percent of. So if my father owns a business, I can't lease commercial property to his business that's owned in my retirement account.
So I can use my own IRA money to invest in my own business?
Correct. You cannot do something like that.
Okay.
With real estate as well, an additional kind of caveat, when you're investing in real estate, you're not allowed to do sweat equity or utilize the property personally that's owned by your retirement account. So I literally just had a call with a gentleman today. He wanted to go buy a second home using his retirement dollars. And technically you can't do that. You can't go vacation at the property. It's got to be strictly passive income generating asset.
We normally say, or the way I've been taught by, I think, one of your colleagues, but it's normally arm's length. Like
Exactly.
You stay without arm's length.
The basis of what I was just describing is what I would call like arm's length transactions.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome, great. What are the tax benefits or implications for a self-directed IRA? Are there any benefits compared to any other IRA account?
Yeah, so the tax benefit are that the investments you're making are either being made in a tax deferred account or a post-tax account if you have a Roth IRA or 401k. So you are foregoing some other tax benefits that you would have when investing with your personal savings, like cost depreciation and things like that on the tax side. So it's really important to speak with your CPA or tax preparer because there's a give and take. You take away your ability to do those bonus depreciation and other tax mitigation strategies, but you're adding the ability to generate this income in a tax deferred capacity where you only pay taxes on it in a tax deferred or traditional account later in life when you distribute that money for retirement income purposes. And that point in case scenario, you're adding that amount when you distribute it to your ordinary earned income. So at that point, your income's probably going to be lower because you're retiring and you'd be in a lower tax bracket than maybe what you would if you're drawing on that money while you're still working and earning. And again, if you're doing the same thing with a Roth account, as long as that Roth account's seasoned and you've held it, invested it long enough, you never pay taxes on that money whatsoever anyway. So. And
that's why I like my self-directed IRA. How much does it cost to maintain a self-directed IRA? What are some of the fees that or that someone that is looking at this should be thinking about?
Yeah, so the fees range between companies, to be honest. There's companies out there that charge thousands of dollars a year for this type of service. We are really cost effective. We charge roughly a couple $100s a year to our clients. We have base flatline fees. But there are companies out there, and it's very important when you're doing your due diligence on who you want to go with. What level of customer service are they offering? Are they providing, like we do, a customer client account manager that answers all your questions and helps you through transactions? Again, what are their costs? Are they charging you a few $1,000s to self-direct your account, or on our case, like a few $100s to self-direct your account? And we're also providing that customer service model where each person gets someone to ask your questions to, someone to facilitate your transactions with.
Yeah. I think the highest amount I was ever quoted by a company was $10,000 a year. So
I've seen a client come to us because he was getting charged about $3,000 a year for the same thing. We ended up charging him roughly $300 a year for.
Yeah, with the same customer service. Can I convert my IRA or my 401k into a self-directed IRA?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to move funds like that. When you have an existing IRA, all you're doing is what's called a custodian to custodian transfer.
Okay.
So you're filling out a transfer request form for the company you want to take in the funds. They submit it to the company that's currently holding the funds. And that's usually facilitated within roughly a week. It depends on what company's holding the funds. Sometimes they require original paperwork, or sometimes they require what's known as a medallion guarantee, which is like a notary in the finance world. Those types of things may add a little bit of lead time. And then it also depends if they're willing to wire the funds to the new custodian or administrator, or if they force a check to be mailed. So that's IRA to IRA, very simple, very sweet process. The other way to fund these accounts typically is a rollover. So you've got an employer-sponsored plan, typically a previous employer, sometimes a current employer, and you want to pull money out of that account. that always has to be done with a rollover. So you're initiating a distribution out of your retirement account, rolling that money into another retirement account. So there is tax reporting that takes place, but as long as you move out the same exact dollar amount you move into the new plan, it's a complete wash from a tax perspective, and you do not have a tax consequence for it.
Awesome. So you can even do it when you're still working for an employer. You don't have to be unemployed or getting laid off.
That is a very, very case-by-case scenario.
Okay.
The key term that I always have to express here is for someone in that position that has a current employer and they want to tap into that retirement account for alternative investments, they need to verify with their HR department or the retirement company that their employer uses for their employer-sponsored plan if they're eligible for what's called an in-service rollover.
Okay.
That is the key determining factor. If they are eligible, then great, they can pull either a portion of it or all of it. If they're not eligible, there may be stipulations when they become eligible, like you've been tenured with this company for 10 or 15 years, or you've already reached age 59 and a half. It's always case by case, depending on the agreement that was put in place between that retirement account administrator and the employer themselves.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
The last but not least question, what are the advantages of using a self-directed IRA for retirement investing? Some of them you already answered, but...
Sure. Well, the key advantage, in my opinion, is being able to control your dollars into assets that you more affectionately care about or have an intimate knowledge of. A lot of people aren't tracking the stock market on a day-to-day basis, but just have a fund manager putting their money there and just kind of watching that roller coaster without full understanding or explanation of it. Whereas, you know, we network with a lot of real estate investor groups and a lot of other groups that occupy this space, and people are genuinely interested and have their own career path built around these types of asset classes. So when you're in that position, why not use your retirement dollars as additional capital in that space when given the opportunity?
Yeah. And a good friend, and here an example I have, a good friend of mine from church, he lost this past year $150,000 because he was investing in the stock market, and he doesn't have a self-directed IRA, where if he would have invested in a self-directed IRA in the real estate, his real estate went up 3.7% here in the Raleigh area. So a big thanks here to Corey. I hope you liked it. If you like it, give us the thumbs up. This was the first edition of the TRIA and the questionnaire that we're going to do.